When Morgoth bred his first scaled war beast, the ground itself learned fear. From that day, dragons measured every age of Middle-earth by fire, claw, and collapse, alongside skyrocketing insurance premiums from Gondolin to Rhûn. Welcome to Fool of a Tube. We're glad you're here. Now grab a snack and settle in. Today we're exploring who the dragons of Middle-earth are, how they were created, and most importantly, who was so dark to do so. If you love uncovering hidden corners of Middle-earth and untold lore, hit subscribe now and ring the notification bell to be the first to join every new adventure. Morgoth began life as Melkor, one of the Ainur, beings of immense power who shaped the world through music before time began. From their harmony came the first designs of creation, and when that music took form, the world was called Arda. Many of the Ainur entered it to guide its shaping, and those who did became known as the Valar. Melkor descended with them, but his intentions differed. Where the others built with purpose and balance, he sought control. His desire to rule over Arda consumed his original light. Turning north, he carved out a fortress beneath the Iron Mountains and named it Utumno. Within its deep, fire-lit halls, he began to twist what the other Valar had made. From captured spirits and broken forms, he created servants to carry out his will. Orcs, once twisted from elves, became his foot soldiers. Trolls were shaped for brute force, crashing through stone and wall alike. Packs of wolves, larger and more cunning than those found in the wild, hunted under a will not their own. As his war efforts escalated, the creatures he shaped became stranger. He bound corrupted spirits into monstrous bodies, forming things the Eldar would later call werewolves. Some were massive and sentient, serving as commanders or jailers. Others took the shape of winged shadows, called vampires in later tales, although they bore little resemblance to the legends of men. These beings patrolled the skies and passed through walls, used as messengers and spies. Many of Morgoth's beasts spread terror through sheer numbers. Packs of trolls, swarms of orcs, monstrous wolves hunting in coordinated strikes. But numbers had limits. He wanted something that could destroy morale before the battle even began. So he began a deeper work, a solitary creature, vast and unrelenting, shaped in secret to carry destruction in its bones. For years, the project remained buried in the dark. Then one night, the mountains split with fire, and history turned with it. Glaurung was the first dragon ever created by Morgoth, appearing long before the winged drakes that would terrorize Middle-earth in later ages. Morgoth shaped him slowly beneath the fortress of Angband, creating a huge, serpent-like creature covered in heavy golden scales. Glaurung was wingless, moved on 4 clawed legs, and was massive enough to crush his enemies beneath him. Tolkien described him as the father of dragons, indicating that many later dragons descended directly from him. In the year 260 of the First Age, Glaurung made his first appearance. Still young, and not yet fully grown, he emerged prematurely from Angband to wreak havoc on the open plains of Ardgalen. Although his fiery breath caused immediate destruction, the elves quickly responded, and Fingon led mounted archers to drive him back into Angband with a hail of arrows. Morgoth, disappointed by this premature and embarrassing setback, kept Glaurung hidden away for nearly 2 more centuries until he reached his full, devastating strength. Glaurung's true power was unleashed during the Dagor Bragolach, the Battle of Sudden Flame, in the year 455. Morgoth shattered the siege of Angband with rivers of fire pouring from the north. In the front of this deadly assault was Glaurung, now fully grown and at the height of his power. The Silmarillion quotes, In the front of that fire came Glaurung the Golden, father of dragons, in his full might. It wasn't just Glaurung's size or his flames that made him so terrifying. He also possessed the power of the dragon spell, a hypnotic gaze that clouded minds, erased memories, and distorted reality. Anyone caught by his stare became paralyzed, losing control over their own will. Glaurung used this ability, most notably at the elven stronghold of Nargothrond. When Turin Turambar tried to confront the dragon, Glaurung easily stopped him by merely looking into his eyes. Turin stood frozen, unable to move or defend himself. Then the dragon spoke, taunting Turin and filling his mind with manipulative lies. He convinced Turin to abandon Nargothrond at its moment of greatest need, leaving the city defenseless against Morgoth's armies. Glaurung didn't stop there. Later, near the river Teiglin, he encountered Turin's sister, Nienor. Once again, the dragon used his hypnotic gaze, this time erasing Nienor's memory entirely. She lost her name, her language, and any memory of her family or home. Glaurung allowed her to flee helplessly into the wilderness, unknowingly placing her on a path toward tragedy. Eventually, Turin tracked Glaurung to a gorge called Cabeden Aras. Concealed beneath an outcrop, he waited for the right moment, then drove his black sword, Gurthang, into the vulnerable gap behind the dragon's foreleg. Glaurung convulsed, filled the ravine with smoke and steam, and collapsed. The heat and poison overwhelmed Turin, and he fell unconscious beside the carcass. Sometime later, Nienor arrived and found Turin's unmoving body near the fallen dragon. Believing him dead, she stood frozen, until Glaurung stirred one final time. With his last breath, he spoke her name and shattered the spell that had bound her. Hail, Nienor, daughter of Hurin. We meet again ere the end. Her memory returned all at once. What followed was swift and irreversible. Turin awoke only after it was too late to stop it. The dragon was dead, but his cruelty had one last victory. In this way, Glaurung's legacy extended far beyond battlefield victories or ruined cities. His power lay in cruelty, manipulation, and psychological devastation. Even without wings, Glaurung remains one of the most horrifying creatures ever unleashed upon Middle-earth, and certainly one of Morgoth's darkest triumphs. Glaurung may have been the first, but Morgoth was not content with one monster. In the centuries that followed, he refined his designs, shaping new breeds with different strengths and darker purposes. From deep within Angband, more dragons emerged, some built for endurance, others for sheer destruction. These were Morgoth's broods, and each one carried forward the legacy of fear he had begun. Glaurung sired a generation of lesser fire drakes. During the 5th Battle of Beleriand, they stormed the field in packs. Flames poured over shields, mail brightened to white heat, rivers hissed into clouds. Elven hosts reeled, while dwarves of Belegost advanced in rune-forged masks, hammering scale with red-hot axes. Many fell after felling a single drake. Morgoth celebrated the mayhem, though he hungered for a force that could bypass walls outright. The answer arrived on black wings. Ancalagon the Black was Morgoth's final weapon, his mightiest dragon and the culmination of long centuries of dark craft. He appeared only once, at the end of the First Age, when the host of Valinor had breached Ongband's outer defenses, and the war was all but lost. In desperation, Morgoth unleashed what he had kept in reserve. But he loosed upon his foes the last desperate assault that he had prepared, and out of the pits of Angband there issued the winged dragons that had not before been seen. Until then, the dragons of Middle-earth had scorched the land from the ground. These flew. Their arrival brought thunder, lightning, and firestorms that briefly turned the tide. Leading them was Ancalagon, the mightiest of their kind, whose wingspan remains a subject of spirited debate among readers and structural engineers alike. Before the rising of the sun, Eärendil slew Ancalagon the Black, the mightiest of the dragon host, and cast him from the sky. And he fell upon the towers of Thangorodrim, and they were broken in his ruin. Some take this to suggest that Ancalagon spanned miles, and weighed enough to bring down volcanic mountains by impact alone. Others point out that Thangorodrim had already endured multiple wars, ages of tunneling, and prolonged exposure to Balrogs. The truth likely lies somewhere between those extremes. Tolkien left no scale charts, only narrative weight. In any case, when a dragon's corpse flattens your mountain range, its exact dimensions become a secondary concern. The winged drakes vanished with the fall of their master. Angband collapsed. Morgoth was taken in chains. Ancalagon remains, by mass, myth, or metaphor, the heaviest full stop ever dropped at the end of an age. After Morgoth's defeat, surviving drakes scattered. The withered heath of northern Wilderland nurtured hatchlings, while the icy crags of Ered Mithrin concealed older brood. Sauron, ever pragmatic, recruited rather than bred, preferring subtlety to a weapon that might level his own towers. Dragons adapted in kind. Some traded fire for frost. The withered heath stretched between two arms of the Grey Mountains, a wasted tract of scree and wind where nothing green ever rooted. Dwarves once mined nearby slopes, but the birth of dragons turned prosperity to ruin. Between 2570 and 2589 of the Third Age, cold drakes descended from the peaks. One crushed King Dain I outside his own hall. His son Fror died with him. Halls were sealed. Strongholds fell silent. Even afterward, the land offered no peace. Smoke curled where no fire burned. Caverns breathed heat beneath frostbitten stone. Roars echoed through empty valleys, though no wings broke the sky. The dwarves called it a breeding ground. Others called it cursed. Most agreed to keep walking. Smaug likely emerged from this desolation, but if any dared trace his trail, they never returned to say how far it led. Cold drakes were dragons without flame. They froze rather than burned, drawing the heat from stone until walls cracked and breath steamed against cave ceilings. They waited with the stillness of ice shelves, indifferent to time, patient through thaw and snowfall alike. One emerged around the year 2589 of the Third Age, descending on the Grey Mountains where King Dain I held court. The attack was swift. Dain was killed outside his own gates, along with his son Fror. The line of Durin fractured. The dwarves soon abandoned the region, citing hostile conditions, vanishing game, and one deeply problematic reptile. Real estate in the Grey Mountains never quite recovered, except among prospectors with short memories and long axes. These drakes continued to trouble the northern wilds for centuries, hunting travelers and raiding distant settlements. Most left only scattered damage and contradictory rumors. But one rose in both size and memory, larger than the rest, older than most, and enough to convince the dwarves that no treasure was worth defending if the air itself threatened frostbite. Scatha the Worm haunted the northern slopes of the Grey Mountains, a long-bodied dragon clad in pale, iron-hard scales. He slipped through high passes like a whisper, raiding dwarf caravans and vanishing with gold, mithril, and whatever else could be pried loose and melted down. Recovery efforts met frost, silence, and the occasional claw mark. Eventually, Fram, Lord of the Eotheod, took up the chase. After what must have been a harrowing pursuit, He struck at dusk and drove a spear beneath Scatha's jaw. The worm collapsed somewhere in the crags, leaving behind a fortune and a diplomatic nightmare. The dwarves, who had lost much to Scatha's greed, considered the hoard theirs by right. Fram disagreed. He claimed the treasure and, in a flourish of terrible statesmanship, sent the dwarves a necklace made from Scatha's teeth with the message, "Jewels such as these you will not match in your treasuries, for they are hard to come by." The gift was not well received. Some say the dwarves killed Fram over the insult. Others say they simply stored the memory away for future use. The quarrel endured in silence. Perhaps this is why, generations later, the riders of Rohan met Gimli the dwarf with the kind of measured courtesy reserved for neighbors with property disputes no one quite wants to revisit. Scatha left no brood, no toppled kingdoms, and no songs bearing his name. But his death continued one of Middle-earth's more durable grudges, and proved that dragons don't always need fire to start something. By the waning days of the Third Age, one name eclipsed all others in northern legends: Smaug. Hatched in the withered heath, he emerged from obscurity in the year 2770, when he swept down upon the city of Dale. The sky turned white with heat as market stalls vanished in smoke, and the waters of Long Lake simmered from both sky and shore. Within minutes, Smaug tore through the gates of Erebor. The dwarves fled in chaos, but the dragon remained, enthroned atop a kingdom of fire and gold. He conquered Erebor, then memorized it. Every goblet, every coin, every twist of silver on a serving tray lodged itself in his awareness. When one cup vanished, he stirred, eyes narrowed. The absence registered with the precision of an auditor reviewing his own ledger. Burglary was potentially possible, but rarely repeatable. Bilbo Baggins crept through the hoard expecting fire. What he found instead was conversation. Smaug spoke in riddles, slander, and slow-boiling threat, testing the intruder as a cat circles a mouse it doesn't quite want to kill. Yet, during their exchange, Bilbo spotted a vulnerable patch on Smaug's left breast, where gems and scales refused to stick. That detail would pass to Bard of Lake Town, who waited until the moment came and sent the Black Arrow home. But Smaug's damage extended beyond treasure and timber. When Thorin returned to reclaim Erebor, the Horde poisoned him from within. The Arkenstone, symbol of Durin's line, became an obsession. Thorin's heart calcified. Old loyalties broke under its weight. The mountain's throne had been won back, but the dragon had left something behind. Gandalf had seen this danger long before it unfolded. The dragon Sauron might use with terrible effect. Often I said to myself, I must find some means of dealing with Smaug. But a direct stroke against Dol Guldur is needed still more. We must disturb Sauron's plans. I must make the council see that. Had Smaug joined Sauron, the North might have collapsed before the War of the Ring even began. Instead, he died above Lake Town, pierced through the chest, collapsing the master's halls beneath his bulk. The town was destroyed. Property values rebounded slowly. Thorin's company reclaimed the gold, but dragon sickness lingered. Erebor stood again, though not without scars. Smaug's breath had cooled, but the mark he left on Middle-earth could still be felt, in scorched stone, scattered lineage, and one particularly nervous hobbit who would rather not talk about it. Dragons rarely leave heirs by choice, yet rumors persist beyond recorded annals. Herdsmen along the Sea of Rune whisper of shapes coiling under moonlit clouds. Dwarves mapping new lodes in the Forodwaith report tunnels glazed in glass. No chronicle confirms the Fourth Age dragon war, yet Tolkien's letters leave the door ajar. Tolkien remarked that dragons were active in far later times, closer to our own. Evil, he observed, seldom retires. It simply alters its uniform. Dragons reshaped Middle-earth's geography and memory. Glaurung bent wills, Ancalagon cracked mountains. Cold drakes froze kings, Scatha ambushed caravans, Smaug weaponized greed. Each rose on Morgoth's promise of total victory. Each fell through a flaw the dark enemy dismissed. Ruined fortresses, abandoned mines, and scorched valleys remain as mile markers on a map drawn in ash. Dragons rise, dragons fall, and courage endures with a careful eye on premiums in any region that ends with the word fire. Thanks for watching this episode of Fool of a Tube. May your roads lie gentle beneath starlit skies, and may your tales be told wherever hearts gather.